Hello, I'm Stuart Winter, the platform architect for Slackware on the ARM platform. Now, in this episode, you may have been looking at some of the previous videos and you've seen that I've taken what I call the all-in-one installer development work from AiO and just playing around to see how I can get it working on the x86. So this episode is following how I'm going to sort of work on that and just, it's just something I'm doing in the background really to see if it works. But the output, well, rather the sort of end goal of this little task or this little project is to create a tool that creates the images. So you'll be able to download them and just D them onto a USB stick. But there's a few things that I need to know first. There's a few discoveries I need to make that will inform how I create the tool and what feature set it has or what kind of code I might need to write. Because I don't really know that much about SysLinux. The first thing that I need to discover is is there a single version of SysLinux, or are there two versions that target both of the x86 architectures, so x86 32 and x86 64? Do we have a single SysLinux that would be 32-bit that 64-bit can also run, or do we have two separate versions? The easiest way for me to do this is to unpack the Slackware packages for Slackware 64 and Slackware 32 and see if they diverge. So come over and have a look and I'll show you how I'll do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack the 32-bit version of Slackware's SysLinux package and then the 64-bit version. So I'm just going to do that. So the easiest thing to do is current Slackware SysLinux. Oh, hang on. Okay, so I've unpacked the 32-bit version, and then I'm going to unpack the 64-bit version. Okay, so I'm just going to go into 32. So the images that, or rather the single image that you may have seen in a previous video, all of the SysLinux's components are in users share SysLinux. So it's all of this stuff. I've copied quite the bulk of this actually because I figure it's pretty small, and then it gives you a really good feature, or gives you sort of the biggest feature set of SysLinux. So it makes sense to just bung it all in there pretty much, apart from obviously the Windows exe files. Now, what I need to look at is this. So this is 32-bit, isn't it? Okay, so you can see that this stuff is 32-bit and then there's some of the data files and whatnot. So that looks good to me. Okay, so yeah, so this is 32-bit. Okay, that's to be expected because that is the 32-bit package. Oh, I could just do that, couldn't I? Right, 64 is a share. SysLinux. File star. 32-bit, 32-bit. So what I've discovered is that we don't have divergence within SysLinux. In terms of the tool, that makes it easier. There's simply less work to do to handle two different packages. So that's good. So now is the fun part, because if you have a look over here, I've got loads of stuff that I'm working on at the moment. I've tested it already on 32-bit on this laptop here, the slowest laptop in the world. It's actually, I think it's 15 years old, this laptop. I said previously it was 12, it's not, it's 15. It looks really good though, actually. I like the style of it and everything, but it's really old and incredibly slow.
It's bulky.
Well, it does I suppose these days, but I mean at the time this was really streamlined. This was like a really nice laptop, but yeah, it hasn't really, it's just really slow, but it's really the hard disk and the lack of RAM. Anyway, but I've tested it on 32-bit and I'm happy with that. But the next thing to do is to test it on 64-bit. So now that I have discovered that I only need to support one version of SysLinux, the 32-bit version, I can then progress on to booting it on the hardware. So I don't even need to change the USB stick. I don't need to do anything at this point. I can simply plug it in and then boot it up and see what happens. As long as SysLinux boots, then I know that it's all good. And then I've got to test it on a much newer x86 64 that has a UEFI and secure boot, and see how that works, and disable secure boot, I think. So this was my media machine that had Windows 10 on it, because for convenience really, it's a really old, as I said, it's like a 12 or 13-year-old machine at this point, so it is really not up to date, but it does have 6 gig of RAM, and it's got a reasonably good, at least for the time, graphics card in it, but it just hasn't stood the test of time against Windows. It literally is so slow. As soon as you run any endpoint security on it and then Windows upgrades itself, it just grinds to a halt. However, it will run Slackware really well. I know that for certain. I've never run Slackware on it. It's never had Linux on this thing at all. But it will run Slackware really nicely. But what I'm going to use it for is for testing the all-in-one installer, and then I'll use it to build like Linux stock tools when I upgrade that package, and some other stuff on there, because that'll be quite a nice test machine. But the thing about this machine is that it is absolutely filthy with dust because it's been switched on. And it's literally, I don't know if you can see on the inside, but it is just caked with dust. Yeah. And also on the back, it's just caked on the inside with dust. So before I start using it for the project, I just want to completely clean it out because I don't really want this dusty thing in my office. So the first thing you need to do, Ali, is plug in the cleaning machine into the wall socket. There's a couple of tabs underneath the box that secures the. Huh?
Where does it plug in?
Well, underneath, look, there's a couple of tabs underneath here. Look, and you have to pull them off like that. They're probably a bit stiff, actually, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. Okay. So then, oh, a bit of water's got in there actually. I'll have to sort that out. Oh, my tape. Yeah, okay. Get some silicone. Put them in on this left-hand one there, and then turn it on. Top left. Cool. Right. This is the duster machine here. So you just simply. Right, and then simply just sort of jet blast this like that, and then also you have to put it. You squirt it, or rather, you position it into. You spray it into here as well, into the CPU fan.
Any gaps, basically.
Essentially, yeah, you could say that. Yeah, any gaps, pretty much. Okay, so there wasn't a huge amount of dust in that laptop, so that's good. But this one is of a different story. The wind is blowing this direction. If you turn, yes, if we do it from the back, then the dust can blow down that way.
Okay.
So we've cleaned out the machine. It's really nice and clean in there now. Looks almost as good as new. You've done a good job there, Ellie. Well done. It's very clean. So now
£10 now.
Huh?
That's £10.
10? Yeah. You serious?
Yeah.
Crikey.
Why, you want 20?
That's not what I was thinking about, no.
Oh.
Not really. Okay, so. Alright, so the next thing is I've got my USB stick that I installed from on the 32-bit laptop, and I'm going to put it in here and see how it fares. It should just work. So I'm turning the machine on if you want to have a look at the screen. Hopefully the screen should come up. I haven't actually, oh there we go, yeah. Now how do I get into the BIOS, or how do I get into the boot sequence? I don't want that either. Isn't it like a boot? Oh, there we go. Oh. I'm not sure if that's because I pressed... Oh, hang on. Let's just try that again. It clearly worked, but because I interrupted the... Oh, yeah. I don't think this machine has the option like the x86, the 32-bit machine does. I don't think it presents you with a list, so you have to configure it in the BIOS, the boot order in the BIOS. So I guess it's just going to boot off a USB stick anyway, if I leave it alone. Which is also why in the installer I made it tell you to physically disconnect it. It was for machines like this where it's configured to boot. Okay, cool. So now I know that I can use the same syslinux. There's no divergence on architecture with that stuff. So what we're looking at here is a Dell Inspiron 5000 13-inch version. This is an x86 64 laptop. It's a few years old now, but it's pretty good. Well, actually, I'll say that. It's pretty good, apart from the battery in it really hasn't lasted that long. It's in bad health according to the BIOS here. So that's quite unfortunate. And replacing it is not as easy as just... Well, actually, to be fair, I haven't tried to replace it yet. I mean, I could easily unscrew this. But nonetheless, most of my laptops have, you know, battery has fared better than that. But anyway. So this laptop here is my wife's laptop, so I can't install Slackware on it, but I've tried to boot the USB stick, and this is what I thought I might come up against at some point. So what I did for the other machines that you've seen, the 32-bit and the 64-bit machines, those have a legacy, what's called now a legacy BIOS. So all I did was I created an X4 file system on the USB stick that you see here, and I copied the syslinux stuff and created a menu and installed the syslinux bootloader onto the master boot record and booted it. So that was really just to see how it works and make sure that the AiO stuff works on x86. As I said earlier, I did everything manually on here. So what I'm going to do next, probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks from now, is start scripting some of this stuff up, and it will create a single disk image that has 2 partitions. The first one will be for the UEFI bootware, and that will be FAT32. It could also be NTFS actually, but it's a lot easier to work with FAT file systems in Linux than it is NTFS. So, and that's what everyone else does as well, so we won't diverge on that. And the other partition will be ext4, and that's the partition that will hold the Slackware tree from which we will install the packages. So that's how that will work. One of the things on these UEFI systems is that on this one you can disable secure boot, and also on my other one as well. But I'm sure there'll be some systems on which you can't do that. Now it would be interesting to know in advance whether you have to do anything special to make secure boot work. You know, so in other words, do I need to, when I write the script, do I need to cater for the fact that secure boot's slightly different? Or is it, you know, I don't know, I haven't looked into it. So what I think I'll do is I'll consult Eric Hammerlier's, Alien Bob in the Slackware team, because he's worked on this installer stuff as well on x86 for years. And he created the USB installer images as well. And he's also, if I remember rightly, he's got secure boot working for Slackware. He's got the ability to sign the boot assets to work with these systems. So I'll consult with him as well and see if he's got any pointers on this. But at the moment I've got more AiO64 stuff that I want to get done first, and then I'll pick this up again probably in a few weeks and see how far we get. Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Take care everyone. Cheers.